All right, I'm back. And today we got UFC Fight Night, Moicano versus Benoit Saint Denis. And we're going to break this down. So the first fight we have here is between Balaji Oki and Chris Duncan. So hold on, let me get the graphic full screen. There we go. All right, so Balaji Oki, I believe, is a slight favorite in this one. I did some tape study, and he's a pretty good striker, technical. Doesn't really move his feet a lot. He is more of like a heavy Muay Thai style, kind of plods, stays right in front of you. But he does have some power, and he throws with some heat. Pretty technical, throws good leg kicks. When he hurts you, he really turns up the pace. He'll throw in combinations. Based off the fights I saw, though, I didn't really see a whole lot of his grappling, and that's what kind of concerns me here. This is his UFC debut, and he is going up against a guy who has fought in the UFC a few times, actually, and Chris Duncan. And Chris Duncan, he's a tough guy. He's pretty durable. Like, he's not going to quit when he gets hit and when he gets hurt. He fights back, but he has been put away a few times, and that is going to be the concern in this fight. I do think Oki is a better striker. And I do think if this fight stays on the feet for an extended period of time, he is going to win. But that being said, Chris Duncan is actually a pretty good wrestler and pretty good grappler. And he is very physically strong. And I think that's going to be the difference in this fight. I haven't really seen Oki grapple, and I'm not going to trust him to be defensively sound in his UFC debut against a guy that's proven himself. You know, Chris Duncan, he beat Yanal Ashmu. You know, he beat Omar Morales, not that good of a win. He lost to Manuel Torres. He got caught early. And then, actually, he caught Torres early, hurt him, and then he got caught himself. And then Torres kind of got into a scramble and then took his back off of a takedown and then ended up submitting him. And then he also fought Vyacheslav Borishev on the Contender Series back in 2021, and he got KO'd. That was actually a pretty crazy fight, too, back and forth. And then he ended up getting clipped with a left hook and got put out. So if this fight stays on the feet, Oki's going to win for sure. Duncan, he just gets hit too much, and his defense isn't that good. He's got some power himself, and again, he's tough. But I do think he can out-grapple Oki. I'm not going to trust Oki to defend some of these takedowns against somebody like Chris Duncan, who's been in the UFC and who showed he can wrestle and he can grapple. So I'm going to go with the underdog here with Chris Duncan, probably by decision. I think that he'll probably be able to win 2 rounds at least using his wrestling, using his grappling and control time. So I'm going with Chris Duncan with the upset here. And moving on up the card, we have Nora Cornole versus Jacqueline Cavalcante. This is a rematch. Actually, I think Nora fought Cavalcante in her first pro fight. Let me double check here. I think it was her first pro fight, in which is her only loss. Yep, it was. It was her first pro fight. She lost by decision, and she has not lost since then. I think Jacqueline is a slight favorite. This one's probably going to go to a decision again. But you know what? I'm going to go with Nora. She hasn't lost since this fight. You know, that means she has to have some momentum going, and it is in France. So I'm going to go with Nora by decision. I think it'll be probably a close one, but not much to really go off on this fight. A lot of these women's fights end up being real close decisions. So I'm going to take a side. I'm going to go Nora. Nora by a decision, probably like 29-28. So moving on up, we have Daniel Barrez versus Victor Altamirano. I did some tape study. Daniel Barrez is he's a pretty good all-around fighter. He's got pretty good offensive striking. Defensively, he doesn't really move his head too much, and he barges forward, and he will run into some strikes because of that. But he does have pretty good striking offense, like his low kicks, his body kicks, the way he strings together his hands and combinations. He'll go to the body. And he's also kind of slick on the ground. Like, he'll throw up triangles, inverted triangles, reverse triangles, all the triangles. And he scrambles and he moves well, and he's got some power in his hands too, and his kicks as well. I believe he is a slight underdog in this fight, and I'm actually going to take Daniel Barrez in this one. Victor Altamirano, he's fought better fighters for sure. He fought Tim Elliott, and he also fought why am I blanking on his name? Tim Elliott, and then Felipe Dos Santos, who just fought Andre Lima recently and lost. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like Barrez is just a better striker. I feel like he's more active and he's going to do more damage in this fight. And I don't really see him getting out grappled over the course of 3 rounds against Altamirano. And I think I'm going to go Barrez, probably by decision. I think he's just going to out-damage him, outwork him on the feet, land the more significant strikes. And, yeah, I got Daniel Barrez by decision in this one. So moving on up, we have Aylin Perez versus Daria Zaleznayakova. I think that's how you say her name. So, yeah, I watched some tape study on, I'm just going to call her Daria, not diarrhea. I watched some tape study, and honestly, I'm just not too impressed. She's kind of a wild striker. She just marches forward, and she is tough. She throws volume, and that's kind of her style, is just getting in your face, throwing volume. But she throws, these looping kind of, wild punches. Not very technical. And, yeah, I don't know. She is kind of tall. She's 5'9", but there's nothing that really stands out in her game. To be honest with you, I think Aylin Perez is a much better grappler. I think she's going to be a lot more physically strong in the clinch and on the ground in this one. And Aylin Perez, she isn't the best striker either. She also throws looping wide shots, but she has some power in her hands. And I just think she's the overall better fighter, especially when it comes to the grappling, and I think that's going to show in this fight. I think she's going to probably take down Daria at will. Maybe get a TKO at some point. I could see that happening, but if not, definitely a decision. So I'm going to go Aylin Perez on this one. I'm pretty confident she's going to win this fight pretty easily. So moving on up, we got Taylor Lapulus versus Vince Morales. Now, Vince Morales, if you look at his record, he's actually fought some pretty good fighters. I believe he fought Song Yadong. He fought Jonathan Martinez. I'm just looking through here real quick. Miles Johns, Chris Gutierrez. And he also beat Ayman Zahabi, which is actually a win that's aged pretty well, considering Zahabi just beat Basharat, one of the Basharat brothers. I forgot which one. Was it Javid? I don't know which one it was, but he beat a Basharat brother, which is a pretty good win. But, other than that, he kind of struggled against every, legit, UFC level bantamweight he's fought. Now, to be fair, he didn't get finished in most of these fights. I only think he got finished in one against Chris Gutierrez by leg kicks. But other than that, all of those other losses were by decision. He did get submitted by Domingo Pilarte on the Contender Series back in 2018. But yeah, he has done good on the regional scene since his his UFC run. But I was watching his last fight and just, I don't know. There's just on the feet, he's just too slow, I think, for a bantamweight, and it's not like his wrestling is, dominant, and he's just going to take guys down and submit them, because that's his biggest threat, is his jiu-jitsu and his grappling once it hits the ground. But he's not really the greatest wrestler, Vince Morales. And Taylor Lapulus, he kind of reminds me a bit like Leon Edwards, in the sense that he's very technically sound pretty much everywhere, but he's not really the most exciting fighter, and he's also sometimes he lacks being able to kick it into that next gear. And that's always been my problem with Lapulus. But I don't think he's going to lose this fight. I think he's going to beat Vince Morales by decision, kind of do what he does. I don't think Vince has the takedown offensive ability and wrestling offensive ability to really take down Lapulus at will. I think he's going to struggle to take him down at all, to be honest. And then on the feet, I think Taylor Lapulus is just going to pick him apart. I think he's just a much better technical striker. Longer, rangier. And, yeah, I'm going to go Taylor Lapulus by decision. I think it'll probably be a boring fight, to be honest, but I'm going to go Lapulus 30-27. I think he's going to win all 3 rounds, stuff all the takedowns, thwart any grappling attempts that Vince Morales is going to try, and just pick him apart at range, use his jab, use his teeps, his kicks, and kind of just win an easy decision. So yeah, I got Taylor Lapulus in this one. So moving on up the card, we have one of the biggest mismatches I've seen in quite a while between Ludovic Klein and Roosevelt Roberts. Now, to be fair, Roosevelt Roberts is taking this fight on short notice, but still, I think Ludovic Klein was scheduled to fight, Nicholas Mata. So, either way, Ludovic Klein should have been fighting someone way better than either Nicholas Mata or Roosevelt Roberts. It's just a complete mismatch. Ludovic Klein's going to fucking destroy him, just absolutely run through him. If this makes it out of the second round, I pretty much consider that a loss for Ludovic Klein. I mean, there's just no way he loses this fight. There's just no way. Ludovic Klein's going to fucking destroy him. Probably by TKO. Probably like a body kick or something. Ludovic Klein's going to win this fight easily. This is a mismatch. Stupid fight. Even the Nicholas Mata fight was stupid. Just dumbass fight. Ludovic Klein should be fighting someone that's like creeping up to the top 15 and like maybe not top 10 yet, but top 15 for sure. Dumb fight, mismatch. Ludovic Klein runs through him. Next fight we got Umar Sy versus Da Woon Jung. I'm going Umar Sy. Da Woon Jung, in my opinion, his only good win was Kennedy Njoku in a fight that he was losing, and then he KO'd him. To be honest, I think it was kind of a fluke. He's lost 3 fights since then. I don't think he's really UFC level. And Umar Sy, he's mostly a striker, but he can grapple. He has some reversals. He has some takedown defense, and he has pretty insane power. I'm going Umar Sy by knockout. I think he's going to win this fight. I'm not sure when. I don't know if it'll be early or late, but at some point I think he's going to knock Da Woon Jung out. And that's that pick. Moving on up, we have Iwan Kutilaba versus Ivan Erslan. Now, I watched some Ivan Erslan fights, and I just wasn't that impressed with him. He's a very stationary striker. He stands right in front of you, plods. And, he does throw hard punches. He has some power. Doesn't really throw a whole lot of volume. I would like to see him throw more leg kicks, but he doesn't really throw a whole lot of kicks from what I've seen. And he's also been KO'd a couple of times, and I haven't really seen any, grappling from him at all. A little bit. I saw him get taken down and out-grappled. But yeah, Iwan Kutilaba has definitely been on the downside of his career, but he still has moments in these fights where he looks good, and he has like moments where you're like, oh shit. But then he kind of just ends up fumbling it. That could easily happen in this fight. Erslan could absolutely KO Iwan Kutilaba, but man, I don't know if I can trust Erslan's takedown defense and his grappling, because Kutilaba can wrestle and he can grapple. And if you're just pretty much a kickboxer, fighting in the UFC, even against a guy like Iwan, who's kind of on the downside of his career, Iwan's fought a lot of really fucking good fighters at 205. And if this dude can't grapple at all, Iwan could easily just take him down and end up just kind of beating the shit out of him on the ground. And that's what I'm going to pick. I think Iwan Kutilaba is going to win this fight. Erslan is just, I don't know, man. He's pretty much knockout or bust. He doesn't throw a whole lot of volume. Sometimes he lets rounds slip away from him because of that. And I don't trust his grappling enough to pick him against, an experienced guy and a guy that can wrestle in Iwan Kutilaba. So I'm going Iwan Kutilaba by TKO in this one. I think he's going to take him down, get position, get mount, and just start ground and pounding. And I don't think Erslan's going to be able to get out of it. So I'm going Iwan Kutilaba by TKO, ground and pound. I think he's going to use his grappling and his wrestling in this one. And I think he's going to get the win. So moving on up, we have Farasiam versus Matt Frivola. This one's a tough fight to pick. Faras is a slight favorite, but I am going to go Matt Frivola. And I think the difference in this fight is just going to be the wrestling. I think that Matt Frivola is a better wrestler. Faras is one of those guys where he's pretty technical. He likes to kind of fight at a technical pace, fight from the outside, use his range, use his reach, kind of pick you apart. And I could see him having some success with Frivola doing that for a bit. But ultimately, I do think that Frivola's style of pressuring and, kind of getting in his face and making it more of a dirty fight and then using his wrestling is going to, get him ahead in this fight. And I'm going to go Frevola by decision. I think it is going to be a close one, though. I think, though, Frevola's damage and his pace, and, again, that wrestling is probably going to be the slight difference in this one. So I'm going to go Matt Frevola by a very close decision. This is a hard fight to pick, though. It really is. Faraz could easily win this fight 29-28 by, outpicking apart Frevola and kind of dancing around him, and then maybe Frevola wins the third round and ends up losing 29-28. So this one could be close, but I'm going to go with Frevola, with the underdog. I'm going to trust that he's going to be able to get a couple of takedowns in there and kind of steal out a decision in this one. Moving on up, we have Morgan Charrier versus Gabriel Miranda. I'm going Charrier. Charrier, if you actually look at his record, I know it's 19-10, so it's if you look at it, you're like, ooh, that's not that good. But he's actually fought really good competition pre-UFC. And also in those fights, they were close fights. It's not like he was fighting good competition and getting his ass kicked. He was going to split decisions and majority decisions with every one of those guys he lost to. And to name a few, Chepe, who is currently on a winning streak in the UFC, who is also pretty good. He lost a split decision to Chepe. Paul Hughes, he lost a majority decision to. Paul Hughes, I believe, might have just recently signed with the UFC. I could be mistaken. But, oh no, he's in PFL. But anyway, Paul Hughes is actually pretty fucking good. He's 11-1, and he was, I believe, the champion in, was it Cage Warriors? Yeah, Cage Warriors. And then he also lost to Jordan Vucinic, who just made his UFC debut on short notice. He lost, but he looked pretty good in the loss, especially early. It looked like he kind of gassed out. But Vucinic, or Jordan Vucinic, is also a pretty good fighter, and he lost a split decision to him. And then, again, if you look at his other losses, they're by majority decision. All of his losses are close decisions, basically. And he's well-rounded. He's got good striking. And Morgan Charrier is very patient. That's going to be the thing in this one. I think his patience and just his well-roundedness. And Miranda, I think they're, the UFC knows what they're doing with this France card. I said that with the last card, with the Sphere, but all the Mexican fighters pretty much fucking lost. So, sometimes it doesn't work that way, but I think that a lot of these French fighters are going to win on this card. Miranda, he lost to Benoit. He beat Shane Young. It's just his wins. I don't know. He's only had 2 fights in the UFC. Yeah, I'm going to go Morgan Charrier in this one. Probably by finish at some point. Probably TKO. Yeah, I'm going to go Morgan Charrier by TKO in this one. So moving on up, we have Kevin Jousset versus Brian Battle. Again, close odds on this one, but I'm going Brian Battle. I think Brian Battle is actually a bit underrated. And I think he's... Oh, shit. I think he's one of those guys that's going to build his way into the UFC and actually end up being kind of a household name. Jousset, even in his wins, he hasn't impressed me too much. He is a striker pretty much. He has good kicks. He went 3 rounds with Kenan Song in his last fight, beat him by decision. Before that, he submitted Kiefer Crosby. That's not a very good win. And then he also fought Jack Della Maddalena back in 2019, lost to a doctor stoppage. So, he's fought some good guys on his record for sure, but there's just nothing that stands out, about his game other than he's a decent kickboxer and he's got good kicks from the outside, good body kicks. But Brian Battle, I just feel like he's more well-rounded. I feel like he can do everything. He can wrestle, he can grapple from the bottom and top. He has pretty good cardio. And his striking has improved a lot. His hands especially. He's always had pretty decent kicks, Brian Battle. But when he came up on The Ultimate Fighter, I thought his hands were a little weak. But they've actually gotten a lot better as he's, progressed through his career. And I just think he's the more well-rounded fighter than Kevin Jousset. So I'm going to go Brian Battle by decision. I think Jousset's tough enough to make it all 3 rounds. But I think Brian Battle is going to, pick him apart, use his kicks, use his hands, and use his grappling, kind of just an overall MMA performance from Brian Battle. I think he's just a better overall fighter. So I'm going to go Brian Battle by decision here. I think Kevin Jousset is tough, and he's going to last all 3 rounds, but I just think he's going to be a little bit outmatched everywhere this fight goes. So I'm going Brian Battle by decision. So moving on up, we got William Gomes versus Joe Anderson Brito. Yeah, Joe Anderson Brito is going to fucking destroy this guy. William Gomes, I mean, it's really just the competition level. Look at Joe Anderson Brito's last few fights. He's beaten Jack Shore, Jonathan Pierce, and Weston Wilson, all by finish. And if you look at William Gomes' last few fights, he beat Yanis Gameri by body kick, and he beat Francis Marshall by split decision, and then Jarno Aarons by majority decision. He's scraping by in a lot of these fights against lower level UFC competition, whereas Joe Anderson Brito's been finishing actually like decent, I wouldn't say like higher tier, but mid-tier. Like Jack Shore is a pretty good fighter, and he got the win in that one, although it was a doctor stoppage. And then Jonathan Pierce, he finished, and then Weston Wilson, he KO'd. He also knocked out Andre Feely. He did lose to Bill Algeo, which is not a great look at this point, but he also beat Diego Lopez by decision on the Contender Series. It says technical decision, so I don't know what the fuck happened there, if there was like an eye poke or a headbutt or something. He also beat Chepe. Yeah, man, Joe Anderson Brito's going to fucking destroy this guy. He's going to destroy this guy. Probably first round finish. I'm going Joe Anderson Brito by knockout or submission. I really don't know. Whatever he wants, really. Probably first round. Gomes would be lucky to make it in the second round. I'm going Joe Anderson Brito on this one pretty easily. Nasruddin Imavov and Brendan Allen here in the co-main event. A lot of people are picking Nasruddin Imavov in this fight, and I get it. He's technical, he's got good striking, he's well-rounded, but sometimes I feel like he can get bullied a little bit now, especially in the clinch and in the grappling. And I feel like that's what Brendan Allen's going to do in this one. If this fight stays on the feet, I do think Imavov's better. I think he's just the better overall striker. I think he's more loose, more comfortable. Brendan Allen's a little bit stiff, doesn't really move his head all that well. He will throw. He's got good kicks. He's tough. But I do think Imavov is the much better striker. And I think if it stays on the feet, he will win. But I don't think it will. I think Brendan Allen is going to be the stronger guy, the more physical guy in there. And I think that he's going to be able to take down Imavov, press him up against the fence at some point, get the takedowns, get the top control. And Brendan Allen he's fucking good, like on the ground. When he gets top position, he's very heavy. And he is good on the ground. And he's got legit submissions, especially his rear naked choke once he gets the back. And, I see him getting this one done by decision. I think it's going to be a tough fight. I think he's going to have to probably go through a tough first round, probably lose the first round. But I think as long as he keeps that pace up, I think he can kind of steal out 2 rounds using his grappling in this one, especially with it being a 3-rounder. I think that one it being 3 rounds favors Brendan Allen over a 5-rounder. If it was a 5-rounder, I would probably favor Imavov a little bit. But since it's a 3-rounder, I'm going to go Brendan Allen. It's going to be a tough fight, but I'm going to take Allen by decision. I think he's going to get the takedowns and kind of just tough it out, dog it out. I got Brendan Allen by decision on this one. The main event of the evening, Renato Moicano versus Benoit Saint Denis. Now this fight, I don't know, come on, graphic, what the fuck are we doing? Here we go. So yeah, this fight, let me get some water. This fight's going to be interesting. I don't know. I could see a world where Benoit Saint Denis beats the dog shit out of Moicano for the first 2 rounds and then fatigues and then ends up losing at some point in the 4th or 5th. Benoit has to fight. He has to fight a little bit more patient in this one because Moicano, he's one of those guys where he ends up getting in these dog fights. He gets hurt. His opponent ends up just going after him, thinking they can get the finish. They don't get the finish. They end up getting tired, and then he ends up getting a body lock, dragging behind you, getting your back, and then taking you down, and then he controls you for the remainder of the fight, or TKOs you with ground and pound, or gets your back and submits you. Moicano does have very good jiu-jitsu, especially when he gets on top. And, his striking's underrated. Like, he can strike, too. He's got a nice jab. He's got good kicks, good low kicks. But he is hittable. with the punches, with the boxing. He doesn't really move his head too well, Moicano. Neither does Benoit, but I do feel like Benoit is going to be a bit better with his hands. I do think he's going to have a little more power. I think he is, he probably is the better wrestler, although Moicano does have underrated wrestling, especially from the body lock and from the clinch. He might not be the best wrestler from shooting doubles and singles on the outside, but Moicano is good at, shooting a double, not getting it, and then immediately going up to a body lock and starting to work the back and trying to trip you. He is good at that. Benoit, though, that Poirier fight in hindsight is actually a pretty good performance considering how well Poirier did defensively against Makhachev on the ground. Because Benoit was actually, kind of whooping his ass and controlling him pretty easily early in that fight before he gassed out. He had the staph infection, whether that played a factor in that fight or not, who the fuck knows. But Benoit, he's going to have to slow it down a little bit in a 5-round fight against Renato. Because if he doesn't get that finish early and he goes crazy to try to do it, Moicano can 100% end up coming back and winning this fight. But, fuck, man, it's tough. It's tough. Moicano, I think, is 36? How old is Moicano? Let me check. 35. He's 35. Benoit is 28. Fuck, I think I'm going Benoit. Moicano, he gets hit a lot. He does get hurt and dropped. And I don't see... If Benoit hurts him the same way, like Jalen Turner did, I just don't see him fumbling the finish. This dude's he's got too much killer instinct to, fuck up a finish like that. And yeah, he's also very good on the ground too, when, especially if he hurts Moicano. Like, Moicano, if this was a straight grappling match, Moicano would probably win it. He's probably the better, jiu-jitsu, overall grappler. But, Benoit is good enough that if he hurts Moicano with a shot in the feet and, drops him and then gets on top, he can, get mount and get position and get a TKO and still control him on the ground because he hurt him on the feet. So, I'm going Benoit. I'm going to trust Benoit to get him out of there at some point. Although, I am a bit concerned that he's going to end up hurting Renato early and gas out, and then he's going to end up getting, fucking TKO'd or, lose a decision. 3-2 because of it or something. But I'm going to go Benoit. I'm going to trust him. I'm going to trust him to get him out of there. He's going to land something at some point on Renato, hurt him, and it's just going to get chaotic, and I think he's going to get a TKO at some point. So I'm going to go Benoit Saint Denis by TKO, probably round 2, maybe round 3. But Moicano is absolutely a live dog in this fight. I would not sleep on him too much. I'm certainly not that confident in Benoit, but I am going to pick him to get it done. So those are the picks for Fight Night Moicano versus Saint Denis. I was going to do a breakdown and recap of O'Malley and Merab, and I don't know, I still might. I was also going to do a matchmaking for it, but I'm going to wait a little bit because some of the fights I had a list written out and everything for all the fighters on that card, but some of the fighters that I was going to match them up with already got fights booked, so I'm going to wait a little bit on that one until the dust settles and see what fighters are booked and what fighters are not booked moving forward. And then I'll probably make a video on the O'Malley-Merab card and do a matchmaking video on that one. But here are my predictions for this card. Thank you for watching, and I will see you motherfuckers next time. Have a good one. Hold on, let me close this out. Yeah, have a good one. See you next time.